Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, I have to admit, I've been staring at today's source material for probably the last 48 hours.
Oh, it's one of those.
It is. It's one of those readings that doesn't just give you new information. It kind of, I don't know, rearranges the furniture in your brain.
It is a heavy one. Yeah, it's definitely not the kind of thing you can just skim and move on from.
No, absolutely not. Usually when we do one of these, we're looking for a concrete answer. What's the data? Who's right? Who's wrong? But today is different.
The total reframe.
It is. We are looking at a source titled The Cultural Architecture of Gendered Traits. And it's basically telling us that we've been asking the wrong questions entirely.
It suggests that most of the debates we have, the really heated ones, are sort of missing the point because they accept a premise that's actually flawed.
Right. And the topic is gender. But, and I need to be really clear here before you tune out thinking, oh, I know this debate.
Yeah, pause that thought.
Hit pause on that reaction. Because this isn't about the usual arguments. We are not here to talk about biology versus sociology or, nature versus nurture in the old way.
We definitely aren't.
This source suggests that when you hear people arguing about gender like men are naturally like this or women are naturally like that, they're in a tug of war that is, well, doomed.
Doomed because they aren't looking at the rope, they're just pulling.
Exactly. The usual debate is just that, a tug of war. On one side, you have traits like aggression or stoicism. On the other, nurturing or empathy.
And we spend all our energy arguing about who owns which part of the rope, who is naturally better at math, who's naturally more emotional, all of that.
And implicit in that whole fight is the idea that the rope is real, that aggression is this solid, immovable thing we can just pick up and measure.
And that is the core assumption we are going to challenge today. Our mission for this deep dive is basically to drop the rope.
I like that. Drop the rope.
We aren't taking a side. We're here to ask a much stranger and, frankly, much more uncomfortable question. Who decided these qualities were traits worth measuring in the first place?
That was the hook for me. That was the aha moment.
Yeah.
The list of traits we argue over,
Mm-hmm.
It isn't stable. It's not this universal menu of human nature that's been around forever.
It's a cultural production.
Cultural production.
Uh-huh.
It sounds a bit academic, but let's unpack it. Because when I think of traits, my default setting, and I think it is for most of us, is to think of them like Lego bricks.
Lego bricks. Okay.
Yeah, like every human is built from these little blocks. You've got your red bricks of anger, blue bricks of sadness, yellow bricks of creativity, and we just assume every human everywhere has had access to the exact same pile of bricks.
Right. We just build our castles differently. It feels very intuitive. Anger is anger, whether you're in New York today or ancient Rome.
Exactly. But the source calls this the flattening effect. We flatten all that nuance.
Yeah.
And the argument here is that they're not universal units. A trait...
It's a label that a culture decided was important enough to stick on someone.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, you have to look at the idea of visibility. This is something the source really hammers home. Some characteristics only become visible as traits because a culture decides they matter.
While others just disappear entirely.
Exactly. They become invisible. I mean, think about the thousands of things you do every day. You breathe, you blink, you regulate your body temperature.
But we don't walk around saying, wow, look how digestive that person is, or check out the bipedalism on that guy.
We don't. Why not? Because it fades into the background. It's just a basic condition of being an adult. It's invisible to our analysis of personality.
But the second a culture decides that, say, interrupting someone in a meeting is significant.
Suddenly it's a trait. It becomes visible. We put a spotlight on it. And that's what creates the list of traits we all fight over.
So the spotlight moves. That's the critical part.
The spotlight moves. And that's why gender categories can feel so convincing in one social world but step into another, and they just feel totally incoherent.
Okay, let's drill down on that, because the spotlight moves is a great phrase, but what does it actually look like?
Okay, let's take assertiveness. The source points out that the exact same behavior, same action, same volume, same tone can be interpreted completely differently.
Depending on the setting.
Depending on the setting. In one world, say, a corporate boardroom, speaking forcefully might be read as expressive or passionate.
Leadership material, yeah. It gets a positive trait label.
Right. But take that same person, same energy, and put them in a different context. Maybe a culture that values harmony over individual expression, suddenly that's not expressive.
It's undisciplined,
Yeah.
or rude, or hysterical.
Or in a third setting, like a busy trading floor, it's just ordinary. Nobody even notices it.
Because it's just the baseline. It's not even a trait at all.
It's just a condition of participation.
That is wild. We spend so much time analyzing the person. Why is he so aggressive? But we rarely analyze the lens that decided aggression was the thing to measure.
We're judging the actor but ignoring the scriptwriter. And here's the key takeaway from that section. The person didn't change. Their biology didn't change. What changed was the cultural lens.
So, if the list of traits isn't natural, if it's constructed, then the next question is, who built it? Why these buckets for masculine and feminine?
That's the million-dollar question. The source argues that when theories talk about these traits, they're encoding assumptions from a specific social order.
Encoding assumptions. That sounds a little like a secret code.
In a way, it is. It's the code of how a society runs. Think about its labor expectations, its hierarchy, its survival demands.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Imagine a society that's under constant physical threat. Maybe they have to fight off predators or, I don't know, fight wars for resources.
Okay, a frontier society.
Exactly. In that social order, physical aggression isn't just some random behavior. It's a high-value currency. It becomes highly visible. It gets praised, measured, and put on the masculine side of the ledger.
Right. The environment demands it, so it becomes a prized trait.
But now, flip it. Imagine a society that survives on complex trade negotiation. A world where war means you failed. In that world, diplomacy, reading emotional cues, and empathy might become the dominant high-status traits.
And the masculine ideal might look totally different.
Totally. The trap, and the source is very clear on this, is that we take these snapshots of a society's needs, and we treat them as if they are timeless, universal truths about men and women.
We're looking at history, but we convince ourselves we're looking at biology.
Yes. And history disguised as biology is a very powerful thing. It makes the status quo feel inevitable. Like, well, this is just how men are, instead of this is how we organize our society, and these are the behaviors that structure requires.
Okay, I want to play devil's advocate for a second. I know someone listening is thinking, okay, interesting theory, but couldn't these traits just evolve slowly? Maybe it's not society. Maybe it's just biology manifesting over thousands of years.
That's a fair pushback. It's the standard evolutionary psychology argument, but the source anticipates this, and this is where it gets really interesting. It introduces evidence that these conflicting definitions exist at the same time, right now.
And this is the part where we have to talk about the moon.
The moon, yes. I love this example because it's so concrete.
Walk us through it, because it really does break your brain a little bit.
So let's forget humans for a second. Look up at the sky. There's a moon. It's a rock. It orbits the Earth. It has no personality, no biology, no chromosomes.
It is objectively genderless. A space rock.
A space rock. But if you speak German, the word for moon is der Mond. It takes the masculine article. Grammatically, the moon is a he. But if you cross the border into France, it's la lune, feminine. Or go to Spain, la luna, also feminine.
So in Germany, the moon is a guy. In France, she's a lady.
Grammatically, yes. And the research shows this bleeds into poetry, mythology, all sorts of cultural associations. But here is the critical point. Nothing about the moon itself changes when you cross that border.
It's the same rock.
It is the same rock. It reflects the same light. So what changes?
The framework.
The language.
The linguistic and cultural framework used to interpret it. This shows, I think, pretty definitively that gendered meaning does not arise from the object itself. It doesn't come from the moon. It comes from the system that assigns the meaning.
Man, that stops you in your tracks, because if we can do that to a rock, if we can look at the same gray sphere and say that's masculine in one place and that's feminine in another, imagine what we do to human behavior.
We are doing the same thing. We see a behavior, say someone crying, and depending on our language, our cultural framework, we assign it a meaning. That's a feminine trait. But the gender isn't in the tears, it's in the system we're using to look at them.
We're not just observing reality, we're interpreting it. We are projecting. And because these systems, like French and German, exist at the same time, it proves there isn't one natural order, just different ways of organizing the world.
So this brings us to what the source calls the deeper critique. And this is the hardest part, I think, but also the most important, because we usually get stuck debating the distribution.
Right. The dinner party conversation, men have more of this, women have more of that. Or we argue the prescription. No, women should be more assertive, or men need to be more empathetic.
It feels like we're at a restaurant just arguing about who ordered what.
That's the perfect metaphor. The source uses this idea of a menu. We act as if there's this pre-existing menu of human traits, aggression, empathy, logic, emotion, and we just argue about who should order what dish.
Right. I'll trade you my logic for your intuition.
But the source asks a much more basic question.
Who printed the menu?
Who printed the menu? Who decided which qualities count as treats in the first place?
Yes. Why are these the appetizers we have to choose from? There are millions of ways to be human, but our menu only lists a few of them.
And it sets them up as opposites. Logic is the opposite of emotion. Is it? Who decided that? The real issue is the prior construction of the trait categories themselves.
Prior construction. So the categories were built before we even started the argument.
That's the crux of it. The framework decided what mattered before the debate even began. And this is why these arguments can feel so heated and yet so unproductive.
Because we're arguing inside a box that someone else built for us.
We are arguing about the rules of a game without asking who invented the game. Until we see that layer, that the menu was written by a specific culture for a specific purpose, we're just going in circles.
It's like we're arguing over whether a behavior is masculine or feminine, when we should be asking, why is this behavior even being measured, and what are we ignoring?
That's the key. If the framework creates the traits, then there must be huge parts of human experience that we don't even have words for, because our lens hasn't decided they're worth labeling.
That is a staggering thought. It makes you realize how much of our personality is just us trying to fit into these pre-cut shapes that society gives us.
And it explains why it can feel so restrictive. It's not just being told, don't do that. It's that the entire vocabulary of what you can be feels limited by this historical menu.
Yeah.
You might have a way of being that doesn't fit into stoic or emotional, but if it's not on the menu, it's basically invisible.
So what does this all mean for someone listening? We've gone from Lego bricks to the moon to a restaurant menu. It's a lot. How does this change how we walk through the world tomorrow?
I think the biggest takeaway is to just shift your attention. When you hear a discussion about gender, whether it's on the news or at work, don't just listen to the facts they're presenting.
Right, for the framework.
Look for the framework. Ask yourself, why is this quality being treated as the defining trait here? What assumptions about labor or power or value are buried inside that label?
So instead of accepting the premise, you question the premise.
Exactly. When you realize the list is a cultural invention, it gives you a little distance. You don't have to take it so personally. You can see it for what it is, a system. And systems can be analyzed.
It's incredibly liberating, actually. It means that we aren't just trapped by biology. We're navigating a story that culture tells. And stories can change.
They can, but only if we see them as stories first, not as absolute truths.
Wow. We really did go deep today. From the instability of traits to encoding social orders, I'm never going to look at the moon the same way again.
Ellen.
Dear Mond, it really does prove the point perfectly. The label is not the thing.
It isn't. And I want to leave the listener with one last thought, something to mull over. We talked about how the framework decides what matters. So if that's true, what traits are we ignoring right now?
The thing's not on the menu.
Exactly. What parts of your own personality or the people around you are completely invisible simply because our current cultural lens hasn't decided they're worth labeling yet? What is on the secret menu of human nature that we haven't even learned to read?
The secret menu. I love that. I'm going to be thinking about that all week. Thank you all for taking this deep dive with us. It's a bit of a brain twister, but those are always the best ones. Next time you find yourself categorizing someone's behavior or your own, take a second, check the menu, and maybe ask who wrote it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.